Welcome back to the channel. My name is Crawford. This is Virginia's for Lowriders. Normally I would start this video off with we're trying to get at the Mazda project, trying to get this thing to run and drive. We're fighting A.D.D, we're fighting O.C.D. We're just chipping away at this never-ending list that is like 4 pages long. The list is dwindling. The truck is getting closer to being driven. But I'm at this weird standstill point with the truck where I now need to do body work. I need to paint the doors, the hood, the front fenders, and the bed. With that being said, I have a tiny garage and there is no room to push the truck to the side in order to like body work and not get the truck ruined from all of the work that we've done to it so far. I kind of did it backwards in a weird way where I probably should have just did the body work all at once. But I wanted to get the cap. Yeah, it was a whole thing. If you've been here from the beginning, you'd understand. My brain doesn't function the way it probably should. So I came out here this week. I recorded a whole bunch of stuff, little things here and there. We put the interior back together even further. Got the shifter, shift boot, all of that stuff in. I went through and steamed the carpet and got some of the edges to where they're tucked in nice and smooth. And we're almost back at the point where we can put the seat in. We're going to button up some wiring. We made a hood prop cable. We did a lot of random little things this week. The problem, which I don't know why, I don't know if it was a memory card just being too full of stuff issue, but I lost a lot of footage. A lot of it was damaged somehow. I don't know. It's kind of aggravating because I record things and I rewatch them as I'm done recording to make sure the audio is good and all that. But I can't get the footage to transfer onto anything else without it having these weird clipping noises, and occasionally the screen just goes blank. So with that being said, I will add in everything that I can add in and everything that I've recorded that is usable footage. I think that the hood prop cable explanation and all that was good, but not much after that. So this week is kind of a weird wash, and now I need to get something done. We need to make progress that's y'all can physically see, and I don't think that progress is going to happen on the truck. So with the weird standstill of needing to do all of these body panels on the truck, I don't have anywhere to put the truck outside while I'm doing all of that work, which is kind of a weird thing. I can't just set it outside because my house is backed up to woods and there's crazy amount of wildlife, and there's already raccoons trying to get into my attic and they tore out the siding, and then there's just more things that I gotta fix. So I'm at this weird thing where either I'm gonna buy a bouncy house inflatable paint booth that you see online a bunch, which I'm not really excited about buying one of those because they're a lot of money for a bouncy house that probably won't last me 10 years and it's going to be worthless and in the trash within that time. Or I'm going to buy another sea container to where I can store my projects when they're in this weird in-between phase, so where I can put the Mazda in there, and while the Mazda's in there I can have all of those body panels in my garage and I can paint them in here. So what I'm trying to say is, I'm going to show you everything that I did. We're going to get the seat in it this weekend. All right, well, today. Today's Sunday. It's already like 11 o'clock on Sunday. I've been outside messing around with other stuff. We're going to get the seat set in here so we can get that satisfaction of seeing what that looks like finally after months of it sitting in my spare room in my house and taking up a bunch of space. I'll add in the other footage, but what we're going to do, if you've been here for a couple months, you've seen that we're doing some voting. Actually, just the last couple weeks, really. The voting is between my Model A, my Ranchero, my van, and my Caprice. As it stands, the van has been kicking butt. The Caprice occasionally, randomly will jump up in the vote, and then the van takes over and they go back and forth and do all these weird things. So with the Caprice, now what I'm gonna say isn't taking away from anybody's voting, because again, the van has been in the lead quite a few times, so I don't, it kind of seems like it's swaying towards the van, which it'll be a very cool project. It is a full-size Chevy van, but it's a stubby. It will be bagged or hydraulics and body dropped on, potentially I have some brand new Daytons and I have some other old school lowrider wheels. It'll have a 383 that I still need to buy heads for, but that's later on. It's a cool project. So what I'm going to say is, this can't physically be in here in order for us to work on the Caprice. So even if the Caprice wins, the Caprice is still on the back burner until this is finished. But with the van, there's a lot of things that we can do to the van, and then I can show y'all me doing to it in the meantime. So we can pull the van around to the other side of the yard. I can power wash the van up. We can get it all cleaned and degreased and nastiness away from, because it's been sitting in my backyard in the mud for, again, like 8 years. It needs to be cleaned out. The floor needs to be cut out. The engine needs to be pulled out. And all of the front suspension needs to be removed. There's a lot to do. And a lot of things that need to be done, so I can take measurements to see what I need to purchase. It'll probably be a Mustang 2 front end. I have some ideas for the rear end. There's a lot. But if you've never been here before, make sure you go check out the truck. There's 47 something videos on just this truck of literally everything that you can do to a vehicle. Bags, 3-link stuff, everything's made from scratch. Full exhaust made from scratch out of stainless steel. It's been body dropped. We're doing paint and body work. There's engine modifications. There is tons and tons of stuff. So go check out all that. I'll show you what we've done to this, and we're going to start chipping away at the van. It'd be a good change of pace. Today is the first day. It hasn't rained in over a week. I think I got a Wednesday where I came home from work and it wasn't raining for like 2 hours and I was able to mow the grass. But other than that, it's been raining, so we haven't really been able to do anything outside, and we could have painted some stuff in that time, but the weather wasn't there. I'm rambling. Let's just get into it. So what I'm trying to do here, this is the factory cable. I don't know where it went. I cut the end of it off so I can pull the cable out of the sheath. And then I got to messing with this, and I noticed the cable isn't actually permanently attached to the piece that bolts to the dashboard. I'm going to attempt to get this side off also. I went on Amazon, which I buy a lot of crap off that website. Went on there. I found this universal big kit that is meant for dirt bikes, motorcycles, bicycles, whatever kit. It's meant for two-wheeled vehicles, basically, for throttles and brakes. Looking at that, I think that I can make that universal kit work with this. Now that we have this end, potentially the other end, I'm looking at this thing, it's just crimped on the end. I'm going to attempt to cut this off here, and hopefully this little tube is hollow enough to where I can slide the new cable on there and crimp it again. So I'm gonna see if that'll work, because I'd really like to retain this factory handle. I actually purchased, because the descriptions on Amazon aren't very good, I purchased a 7-foot long control cable. It's usually what you would see for a choke. It's actually a solid rod, and I didn't think it was whenever I ordered it, so I don't think this is gonna work. I feel like that's kind of asking too much for the weird maneuvering that the cable has to do through the dashboard. So I'm gonna cut this real quick, see if I can save this end, and see if we can make this whole thing work out. That is not made the way I thought it was going to be. Still might be able to make this work though. Oh, that gives it about 1/4 inch or so in there. The hole is slightly smaller. So We can open this up a little bit. Looking at the old one, it kind of looks like all they did was put it in the end of there and crimp it with a machine that makes a nice square crimp all the way around. I'm kind of thinking something along the lines of this. I need to add roughly 8 inches or so to the end of this thing. So now that fits smoothly, I didn't realize this only going there one way. That fits good. So now I need to come up with my length. I need to shorten this thing. So that's both factory ends. I need roughly, I'm gonna go measure the parts truck just to confirm. I went out there and measured the distance from the end of this to the ball. It's exactly 1.5 inches. I don't feel like getting into making some soldered end or some lead end or anything fancy, because you literally never see that tiny little piece. It comes with these little things that I'm assuming are for crimping. I have this tiny bag of washers. They're so small I can't hold on to the things. So my thought on this, I'd slide one of these on there, which I know I'd be using this incorrectly, but it really doesn't matter. I've seen people online solder the end of this and make it like a, I just lost that little washer, and make it kind of a factory style end. I cannot hold on to that little tiny washer. So that little washer can't fit through there. And I got a bunch of these little crimp things that come in the kit. I'm thinking something like that. And I don't think that would ever come off. We're just gonna go for it. I just realized as I was finished up editing, I never showed the hood pop cable. So it's running through the outside of there, goes to the factory handle. Hood latches. And releases. And that is with the motorcycle cable kit. And reusing factory ends. Not super happy with the way this is routed yet, but it does work right now. So this is the van in question. It is like a 95-ish. So this would be the first legitimate introduction of the van to the channel. That tire is still leaking. So it is a 95. It has a 92, 95, I don't even remember. It has a blown up 4.3 in it. My buddy Adrian had it. It was blown up. He was daily driving it and it blew up on him. It started knocking terribly. Whenever I bought my house and I was loading it on the trailer to bring it to this house, I actually drove it on the trailer that a couple weeks before that. I went to drive it on the trailer again and the motor just solid locked up. The motor is completely trashed. So I have a Merc Cruiser 383 that needs heads because it was overheated and that messed up the valves. So I'm going to buy some heads for that. But the van has been a catch-all for junk for the last 8 years. It is completely full of trash. Not trash necessarily. It is completely full of my junk. There are welders in here. There are car parts in here. Quarter panels for the Ranchero. There's interior pieces for the Ranchero. More welding cables. The heads off the 383. Just tons and tons of stuff that just needs to probably find new homes. That doesn't include my home. Stuff I need to get rid of. But overall, the van is in pretty decent shape. It has some scrapes and dings. It has some rust that isn't really a big deal because it's all relatively simple sheet metal stuff. This thing, the plan, which again, after the voting is completed, which will be next week, I think. After the voting is done, there will be sub-voting, I guess. Y'all can choose the wheels. I have a couple sets of wheels to choose from. Y'all will choose a suspension type. That would be bags or hydraulics. I have an idea how I want to set up the rear, so I don't think I'm going to put that into a vote, but it will be Mustang 2 swapped in the front because of the way the front suspension is made on this thing. There's no way for me to get this to lay on the ground as flat as I want. I've seen a lot of these online that are body dropped, and there's a handful where the rocker panel actually lays on the ground, and that's what I want to achieve. In order to do that, all of this needs to be removed because all of this is lower than the frame rail, and the frame rail again, this is unibody, and it all have to be cut up. There's a chance that I can make it work. I built a few C10 cross members for a friend of mine. I actually built the C10 for him, but cross members to essentially body drop an older style C10 easily. So there's things that might be able to be done if I can section this cross member and move the control arms up, which I don't think is possible. But again, that's what the point of today is. We're going to get this thing cleaned up and power washed. I need to start taking some of the stuff out of the inside of it and probably just throwing most of the stuff away or giving it away. Sorry for all of the wildlife. The birds around here are crazy and they don't shut up. But I got it pulled around with the old skid steer to where we can start digging into this thing and coming up with a game plan. But if you haven't been here before, I'll show you the Caprice that is also in question. This is my 86 Caprice, 86 or 87. I'm terrible with my years. It is on hydraulics already. It lays flat on the ground as far as the frame goes. But what it does not do is lay body, which I would like for it to lay body. As you can see, the frame is on the ground, but the body's got a while to go before it touches. So again, this is another option that will get done. It's just a matter of what order it will get done. But today, we're focusing on the van. That won't fit in the garage. The truck is at a weird thing, and we just gotta get something done. And what better thing to do is get some satisfaction of cleaning something that's been sitting in your yard and molding for the last 8 years. So we're gonna get the old Ryobi power washer out here. If I can get it out of the garage. Let's start off with just taking off the dirt and grime of this thing. There's a lot of mud built up on it from it getting rained on for years and years while sitting in the mud. I find it way harder whenever you're actually in the garage tackling stuff like this, when there is dirt and grime and grease and everything that you have to work around while you're working. My cheapest, easiest way of degreasing and getting all this nasty stuff off of everything is go to the Dollar Tree, get you a bottle of, or a couple bottles of Awesome. It's only $1, or whatever they charge now, $1.25. These bottles will actually screw into a cheap foam cannon without having to transfer the bottles over to the one that came with this. There's actually things growing on the van this thick. Again, cheap $1.25 bottle of Awesome. Threads right onto the $15 cheap gun here. So what I like to do, basically just hose the whole thing down with one bottle of Awesome. Usually when I do this, it's probably like 3 or 4 bottles that I'll go through. Let this soak it all in. As you can see, it's already loosened up the majority of it. Like that stuff is barely attached to the van at all. Let this soak. Basically when it stops dripping, which it's pretty close to it now. It's probably been 5 minutes or so. And that was one bottle to get the entire thing soaked. Let that sit, let it drip off, and I'll come out the entire thing one more time with a whole nother bottle. I'm actually going to lay on the ground and spray underneath of it as much as I can. Once that's done soaking again, I'll hit it with the little cheesy turbo nozzle on the Ryobi, and it'll take 90% of it off. And whatever we have left, we'll soak it again. I'm going to try and pop the hood. I was going to try and pull the doghouse off and power wash the engine, but it's a little buried right now. I like to do in here. I like to do all of this because all of this stuff's going to get removed. All of this is probably going to get cut out depending on what it takes to get this thing to lay. So most likely the wheel tubs are going to have to get raised along with everything else. I'm not really sure where to put all this stuff. I'm going to have to start calling friends. I got some brand new S10 drop spindles that have never been used and sat in here long enough where they rusted. Bunch of levels and random stuff that came from my dad's house. As you can see, Mickey and his friends have been living in here for who knows how long. That right there smells absolutely terrible. So there's a lot to clean before we can even move on to the fun part. I don't recommend this on a running and driving vehicle, but for something you're planning on completely taking apart and cutting up, it's great. You can actually see there's mud daubers living on the transmission. There's mud daubers back there living on the exhaust. The amount of things growing on this van are pretty bad. Well, the initial pass with just the power washer, no scrubbing, it looks like a different vehicle already. So I'm going to hit it one more time, foam the entire thing with Awesome, spray it off, and then scrub it a little bit. I'm not really worried about it actually being physically clean as far as like shiny paint or whatever, obviously, but there's still like a, you can see here's a haze of nastiness that's, if you don't get all that stuff off, it'll just grow back. Looking pretty good. This thing is actually still white. That Awesome actually took off a bunch of the rust drips. The rust spots that are in it were there when I got it. And surprisingly, they don't really look any worse, especially for it's sitting back there with the rest of the junk. So give me a little bit of motivation when it comes time to actually work on this thing now that it's doesn't look like it's 100 years old. Now, the question is, what do I do with all this junk? There is a lot of it, and I really don't have anywhere to put it. A bunch of Model A parts in there. Some turbos, tools, totally random stuff. And a whole lot of mouse poop. Well, while the van is drying, I'll go ahead and get the seat reassembled and try to set the seat in place so we can feel like we got something done today. The carpet looks green with all of the grays around it. I don't know if it's the light in here, but it looks green. There's a lot of grays. There's like 20 different grays in this truck. On camera, it looks gray. In person, it doesn't really look gray. But the seat looks awesome. I am definitely liking this. This is cool. Definitely something cool to look forward to. It looks huge on camera, but it's actually a very, very small seat. Whenever I had him do the seat, I opted to remove the factory headrest. That way, when you looked through the back, there was nothing to be seen. Because the factory headrests are almost pointless because they're like this tall. I'm not really sure whose head would be touching that at whatever point, but mine would never make contact with it. That looks pretty cool. Still got the bunginess here. So now that the seat's in there and I can see exactly what I need to do and what you can see, and James should be happy. We have plenty of room for subs because the seat is nowhere close to the back of this, because this is all the further that it goes back, and there's quite a bit of room back here. I think James and I were doing some measurements. I think we're going to be able to fit some 6.5-inch subs in here, some shallow mount stuff. 6.5 in my Silverado. The box is pretty big, but it doesn't sound too bad. I'm not looking for like my Lincoln. I'm not trying to rattle the car apart, but for something this small, such a small area, it'll still get loud and sound good. That's pretty good. That's some motivation right there. Get this thing on the road. I almost have some room for some cup holders now. I have a full center console, but it's the wrong color, and of course it wouldn't go all the way back, but I have one that I can trim potentially, or just make something from scratch to put in there. Not sure. This is actually the first time I've had the seat back with the upholstery in it, to where I can do a test fit. And I lowered the seat brackets 1.5 inches. I did in a previous video if you haven't seen that. I think it'll be pretty good. My legs aren't super big, but still got plenty of room. I don't feel like my head's gonna come in contact with the ceiling. My buddy James, like I said in the video, I modified the seat. He got a little more booty than I do, so if he ever drives a truck, it's a little tighter for him. His legs are a little bigger, but I think there's still plenty of room. It's still comfortable. It doesn't feel like a body drop truck. It doesn't have that like hunched up, uncomfortable feeling. Whenever I did my Silverado body drop, I cut almost 3 inches out of the seat bracket, and you couldn't even tell when you got in it. It was totally comfortable. And you can't actually tell that these are modified either. The way that I cut them and lowered the floor and everything, it just looks like it's supposed to be like that. So this week, I'm going to run the steamer in all these corners. Now that I know where this needs to rest, and I have this to hold everything in place, I should be able to get this crease out of here and get all of this to lay in there a little tighter. I really need to hit the junkyard and try and find these panels, but I'm happy with it. I gotta find something else to do. I don't know if I can empty the van out today. I was planning that. That was part of the plan this morning, was to empty the van. I don't know where I'm gonna put all that junk. I think that's gonna be one of those things I gotta chip away at it and try and pawn off some of it on my friends. I need to bring the welders in here, try and get those going, but yeah. Still need to power wash underneath the van. Maybe I'll do that real quick. Alright, so I talked to the sea container guy. I'm gonna go, it's like 55-ish miles from the house. So I'm gonna go check out the sea containers this week. See what kind of numbers he's talking about. He has like 25 of them right now for sale. Same guy I dealt with for the 2 that I have and the one that my buddy has in his backyard. The guy's decent-ish pricing. So the plan as of right now is potentially get it another container at a fair price before I load it with crap from the garage. I'm thinking about using it as a temporary storage for things that are in the garage. If I was able to make it an easy access, then I could put my smaller tools in my garage in the sea container and just walk in between the two. I don't know. I'm just throwing around ideas. I really, my ultimate goal is to build a really big shop, but I'm not financially ready to build a really big shop. Plus I have a lot more land clearing to do and things have to line up. So I need to come up with something temporarily to make it to where I can knock stuff out easier, because as it is now, my garage is so small it makes it a huge pain in the butt where I end up working on stuff outside a lot of the time. James, Mike, and I are probably going to go check out containers this week, and that most likely is going to determine at what point the Mazda is going to get painted. Like I said, we're still going to chip away at the Mazda. I'm still going to get it running and moving under its own power. I would just really like to park it somewhere out of the elements. And by elements, I mean raccoons, to where I can do the body work in the garage and not have a truck in there. But we're going to finish this video off today. It's already kind of long. I'm going to do some measuring. I'm going to show you what I've been talking about with this van. The van suspensions are kind of weird because it's a unibody, but it's still large. It's a strange thing that they do. But now that the van is somewhat dry, I don't know how dark this is on camera, but this is all unibody. That is welded straight to the bolt. There's some more mud daubers that I missed. There's another one. I power washed all of this, and it looks pretty good under here. This van is, like I said, it's relatively rust free. It has a little bit in the quarters and a little bit in the rockers, but it's really not that bad. It's set up sort of like a C10. It's big 5-lug Chevrolet. The way that it bolts up is kind of like a C10. It's just not recessed up as far as a C10 is. I'm okay with moving the engine up if I have to. I don't mind cutting into the dash. I don't mind making a new dog box. This is kind of weird. It doesn't have like a normal C10 style mount coming off the frame. It's that huge stilt. I'm not sure how similar that 4.3 oil pan is to an actual V8, but judging by all that, all of this can move way up. The reason that I'm more so contemplating the Mustang 2, one, but the main one is to raise the suspension up, but the other is to narrow the track width, because as it is now, these are appliance wheels. That's what they're called, like the name of the manufacturer. Vans always have a very wide front suspension. The front tires stick out more than the rear tires do. So, like if I was to keep this wheel, unless I ran a lot of camber, there's no way I could get it up in the fender well and get that rocker panel on the ground. So basically, if you look at these control arms, there's just no way to make this work without the van front of it leaning way high. Even with a small wheel and tire setup, it's gonna lean really, really bad. So I'm gonna take some measurements between the frame rails and all of that. I have an idea for the rear suspension. I need to measure out the width of the rear end. I don't think I can run that rear end because, again, it all would be too wide, and I don't think the van would lay out. So there's basically, I'm gonna finish the night up with a whole bunch of measurements and hop online and figure out what I can do with this thing and start ordering parts. Again, this doesn't mean that the van is up next. That is totally up to y'all in the voting thing. I just checked it a little bit ago. It's 40 to 42%. That's the only split. It's like a 10 vote split between the two cars. So either one could easily win this. I just figured today, actually being a nice day, was a good time to get this thing cleaned up in preparation and start ordering parts, because the Caprice is just sheet metal. Just a whole lot of cutting and welding. This, I'm going to have to start stacking parts for, because this is going to be a whole lot of cutting and a whole lot of fabrication to get this thing to sit on the ground. But I'm going to say that about does it for this weekend. Thank y'all again for watching. Don't forget to watch all of the old videos. Please subscribe, and please go to community on my main page, and that's where the voting happens, and you can place your votes there. We post every single Sunday, so hopefully we'll see you again next Sunday.